Our gospel lesson today is that little-known story, the prodigal son. You may never have heard of it. That is a joke. You can laugh. All right. It's from Luke 15, 1 through 3, 11b through 32. Please rise in spirit or in body for the reading of the gospel. Hear now the word of our Lord. All the tax collectors and sinners were gathering around Jesus to listen to him. The Pharisees and legal experts were grumbling, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." And Jesus told them this parable. Down to 11. A certain man had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the inheritance." Then the father divided his estate between them. Soon afterward, the younger son gathered everything together and took a trip to a land far away. There he wasted his wealth through extravagant living. When he had used up his resources, a severe food shortage arose in that country, and he began to be in need. He hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. He longed to eat his fill for what the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have more than enough to eat? But I'm starving to death. I will get up and go to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Take me on as one of your hired hands.' So he got up and he went to his father. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion. His father ran to him, hugged him, and kissed him. Then his son said, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Fetch the fattened calf and slaughter it. We must celebrate with feasting, because this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his older son was in the field. Coming in from the field, he approached the house and heard music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what was going on. The servant replied, 'Your brother has arrived, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf because he received his son back safe and sound.' Then the older son was furious and didn't want to enter in. But his father came out and begged him. He answered his father, 'Look, I've served you all these years, and I have never disobeyed your instruction. Yet you've never given me as much as a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours returned after gobbling up your estate on prostitutes, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him.' Then his father said, 'Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found.'" This is the word of the Lord. Let us pray. Almighty God, may the words of my mouth and indeed the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. You may be seated. Writer and educator John Gardner, in his posthumous book, The Art of Fiction, wrote that there are really only 2 kinds of stories for new writers. Someone leaves town, and someone comes to town. Those are really the only 2 stories. In this parable of Jesus, this very, very well-known parable of Jesus, one of the most well-known and beloved in all of Scripture, we have both. We have both someone leaving town and someone coming to town. And maybe that's why it's resonated so over the last 2,000 years. Here's what happens. You know this story, and I'm going to tell it to you again because there is a reason this story has resonated over all of this time. It is one of the most beautiful stories. It has often been called the gospel within the gospel. It encapsulates the entirety of Jesus' message about who God is. There is a father, and that father has two sons. And if you are literate at all in the Hebrew Bible, what we call the Old Testament, you already know that whenever there are two sons, a father and two sons, something interesting is about to happen. But there are two sons. The younger son goes to his father and asks for his inheritance. The father's not dead. As far as we know, the father is not even close to being dead. But the son asks for his inheritance. As we move into the story, I want us to keep in mind a couple of things that are very important to the context. One, everything that happens in this story is out in the open. It's public. Transactions, especially when it came to land, did not happen behind closed doors. They happened at the city gates where the elders of the town met as a kind of town council. And so when the son goes to his father and asks for his inheritance, he's not doing so at home. He's doing so in front of his father's peers. And he's not asking for kind of an advance on his allowance. What he is doing in this moment is he is essentially telling his father that he wished that he was dead. He wished his father was dead. Father, I don't want to live with you anymore. I don't want to be under your rule anymore. I want what would come to me if you were dead, because as far as I'm concerned, you are. And to understand how terrible this is, I mean, already you get a sense of it, but in a culture that is all about honor and shame, what this son is doing is dishonoring his father in a way that it is difficult for us to conceive of. When a father has complete control over his household in this culture, and a son says, I wish you were dead. I want my stuff, because that's all you're good for. He is lowering his father in the eyes of his community, shaming him publicly. And so the expectation would be that the father wouldn't just say no. Wouldn't just say, son, we need to talk about this. But that the father would cast his son out of his household at best. I don't even know if the son would have expected to actually get the property. He was disowning himself, and that's what everyone who heard the story, that's what the elders at the gate would have expected, that this father would be disowning this son. And instead, the father doesn't. He gives him his inheritance, which as a younger son would have been a third of everything the father owned. He gave it to him. This is the first big indication that nothing is going to go as expected. See, the father doesn't just allow his son to speak to him dishonorably, the father publicly shames and dishonors himself by allowing his son to have the inheritance. Publicly. Out in the open for everyone to see. Let his son, who should have been thrown out of the house, with not a shekel to his name, he let him have what he asked for, and he sent him on his way. It's embarrassing. The elders at the gate would whisper, "What is he doing? I thought better of him than this." And then the son turns around and sells the property, sells the land, which again would have been a very public thing, a public transaction. But he doesn't negotiate, he doesn't haggle over it for weeks or months. He turns around and sells it as quickly as possible and takes off, doubling the shame of his father. Well, unsurprisingly, the son makes a bunch of bad financial decisions after this. He spends all of his money. Now, we don't know what he spent his money on. The older brother later in the story will have some opinions and have some guesses on that. But it never actually says what he did. He may have just made some bad investments. Bought a nice house, maybe a little more than he thought he had in the budget for. Bought a couple of donkeys. Maybe invested in a hummus restaurant. I don't know. But it didn't work out, whatever it was. He was not good with the money that he was handed. And as soon as he finishes spending all of his money in this faraway place, away from anyone that ever had been considered his family, not that he had one at this point anyway, there is a drought. There's a famine. There's no food to be had, and he has no money, and he has no family, and so all he can do is hire himself out to feed someone's pigs. Now again, let's step back and remember that this is a story told to Jewish listeners by a Jewish rabbi, so just about the most shameful thing that you could be doing with your time is taking care of and feeding pigs. It also meant that the son had fled to a place that was outside of the bounds. He's with those dirty Gentiles somewhere. That's how far he's fallen. And now he's sitting in the muck feeding pigs, not even able to eat what the pigs are eating. This is the worst fate imaginable. And I'm sure that Jesus' hearers are thinking, well, this is where the story is going to end. That's a good story. This kid, he got what he deserved. He told his father, the patriarch, that he wishes he was dead. And he fled, and now he's off feeding pigs somewhere. Good story, Jesus. That's a good moral. Do what your daddy tells you to do, you won't end up feeding pigs. But the story continues. The son, it says, came to himself. And I love that passage. I love that line. He came to himself. Maybe you've had a moment like that in your life where you have been figuratively, maybe literally, but figuratively at least, sitting with the pigs, and you have had a moment of realization that I have made some bad choices. I have made some bad decisions, and maybe I've got to do something different. But he realizes that even his father's servants had it better than he does. Which kind of tells you how stupid he had been. If his dad's servants had it better than he does now, really was there a reason to leave in the first place? And I think that's kind of where his mind goes. I made some bad decisions. This was not okay. And here I am. But he makes this really interesting leap of faith. He decides to go back. He decides to go back to his father. Again, after the way he shamed his father publicly, there is no reasonable expectation that his father should take him back, even as a servant. He has no reason to believe this will happen. And yet he has faith in this moment that maybe there is a slight chance that his father will take him in, not as a son, but at least as a servant who will do better than eating the leftover from the swine. So he decides to go back. And as he's walking down the road, he's practicing the speech that he's going to give his father. And I know we've all done this, right? We've all had conversations with imaginary people that we're going to win that argument when we finally see them. The George Costanza model from Seinfeld, where he kept going back to I went to the jerk store and they were all out of you. Like, he was going to win this argument. This kid was going to win the argument. And as he walks, he's repeating this to himself and repeating it to himself. And he comes into view of the town where his father, again, very publicly, is probably sitting at the gate still with the other elders in the community. And in the distance, he sees his boy. This kid who has shamed him, who has made a fool out of him, who he has allowed to make a fool out of him. Will he finally reclaim some of his dignity? Let this boy come to him and beg him to take him back and get to say no. Or maybe even show some magnanimity, show some kindness and take him back as a servant or a slave. As the boy comes. But will he finally regain his dignity? And the answer is a resounding no. He will not reclaim his dignity, because as soon as he sees this son, he runs. He runs to him. This is almost the final straw in terms of honor, because the father never, ever, ever runs to the son, but he does it. He sees him and he is so joyous that he runs to his son. He picks up his skirts and he runs. And the father gets to him and the son begins to recite the speech that he has been practicing for miles and miles. Father, I know I don't deserve to be your son, but if you could just, and the father doesn't even let him finish. And it says he falls on him, and he hugs him, and he kisses him, and he grabs hold of him and will not let him go, and he is weeping. He is so overcome with joy that his son has returned. Father, I know He turns to his servants and he says, you go and you get the best robe, and you go and you get the sandals, and you go and you get a ring for his finger. You go and kill the fatted calf and plan a party, because my son was dead. He was dead and he is alive. He was dead and he is alive. And he doesn't even throw blame at the son. He doesn't say, well, my son was a real jerk, but he's finally repented. He's finally come to his senses. It's just, he was dead and he's alive, and we have to celebrate. And look, the guys at the gate, they're shaking their heads and saying, I cannot believe this man. But they're not gonna turn a good party down. And so the servants, they go and they get the robe, and they get a ring, and they get sandals, and all of these are markers not just of kind of clean clothes, because you know the kid was dirty. It wasn't just changing his clothes. This was a signifier that he had been accepted back into his father's household as an heir. He has spent all of his father's money that was given to him, and now in one gesture his father has said, that's not all. There's more to give you. And they go home, and the whole town comes out as this calf that has been prepared for a party at the last minute is killed and is roasted. And everyone comes and is celebrating. And all he can tell people is that his son's alive. Well, that's when the kid that we've maybe forgotten in the midst of all this comes in, the older son. The good kid. The one who's done everything that was expected of him. Who stayed. Who was out in the field working so hard that he didn't even realize that his brother had come back. And he called and he sees this party at his dad's house. I mean, he just left this morning. There was nothing being planned. And he calls one of the servants, one of the hired hands, and he says, so, what's going on here? And the kid said, your brother's back. Your brother's back, and your father is so excited that he's throwing a party for everybody. You should come in, celebrate with him. And the brother refuses. And this is a final act of shaming a father in this context. Because see, the houses were not closed off like ours are. It's not like there was a party in the backyard. A wealthy man's house would have kind of this open courtyard where a party would occur. And so when the son refuses to go in, he refuses very publicly where everyone can see him. And we already know what the father's going to do. He shouldn't. He's got no reason to. This is not what fathers do. But he did anyway. He goes out again in front of everyone. He goes out and he begs his brother, or his son. He begs his oldest son to come in. Now both sons have dishonored their father, and he is allowed it. He says, this oldest son, how can you do this? How can you do this? How can you do this to me? I have served you all this time. I've done everything you've asked me to do. I've never once disobeyed you. I've never once spoken back to you. I've done everything you wanted me to do. And this son of yours, he's not my brother. This son of yours has dishonored you, and he has run off, and he has spent your money on God knows what and who. And you take it back, but he and you are feeding hundreds of people with this cow. How dare you? How dare you? And the father just looks at him and says, son, you never asked. Everything I have is yours. Everything I have is yours. Why did you think I wouldn't let you have a party? Why did you think I wouldn't let you celebrate? Why did you think I was so hard? What made you believe? What have I done that made you believe that I was so hard? All of this is yours. You could have done anything you wanted with it at any moment. But your brother, not just my son, your brother was dead, and he's back. He was lost, and he's found. Just come in and celebrate. And it seems right here that both sons misjudged their father. Both thought he was hard. One had to get away, and one thought he had to slave away. But the first chance he gets, the father throws a party that he wants both of his sons to attend. Both of his sons to celebrate. Both of his sons to know that they are loved by their father, and yet neither knew that about him. And he just keeps inviting the older son in, and that's where we leave the story, not knowing if he goes in or not. Jesus is telling this story to a group of religious folks. Who would not have missed the thinly veiled allusions to themselves and the older son. But he tells this story, and we call it the story of the prodigal son and the story of the two sons, but this is a story about God. A story of ridiculous, embarrassing, offensive grace. Unfair grace. Unbelievable grace. Grace that makes us uncomfortable. Look, I'm an older sibling. I've got a little sister. And she's not as bad as the younger brother in this one, but I was 7 years older, and I always thought she got away with a lot more. I get it. I feel for this older son. I do. My curfew was 10 o'clock. Hers was vaguely when she got in. But this is a story that makes us uncomfortable, especially those of us who are good religious folks, because it's a story of grace that overcomes all sin, all dishonor. It's a story of grace for the wayward, which is already uncomfortable, but also grace for the self-righteous, reminding us good people that we needed too. That no matter how the sons, no matter how much we reject God, how we misjudge God, how we rebel against God, how we think God is this distant, white-bearded old man who's just out This is a story that says God moves towards us, runs toward us, pleads with us to come. Come, God says, come, be part of the party, part of the celebration, part of the new creation. Don't miss what I am doing, God says. Don't miss what I am doing in this world because you're scared of me. Don't miss what I am doing, God says, because you hate your brother or sister, your sibling, those people over there so much that you are unwilling to join with them. Don't hate them so much. Don't hate yourself so much. Don't hate me so much that you are willing to miss the new creation that God is part of. That God is running towards us, pleading with us to reconcile with God and with one another. That's the story that Jesus tells. Because in the end, there really is only one story. With all respect to David Gardner, there is only one story. The greatest story. A story of a God who loves us so unconditionally that God will never abandon us, will never let us go, will never reject us finally. The story of a God who counts us all as God's children, as daughters and sons, no matter what we've done, no matter where we've gone, no matter who we have been. A God who counts us as God's own. Even if we have sat with the pigs in a foreign country, even if we have rejected God again and again, when we show up at the gates, this God runs towards us, puts a ring on our fingers and sandals on our feet, a robe on our back. God who, when we refuse to